Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Ryan Cooper thought he knew Brielle better than anyone else on Earth. They'd met 2 years earlier at an art gallery in Denver during a contemporary photography exhibit. He was there representing the marketing agency where he worked as a manager, scouting local talent for a campaign. She was showcasing her own photos, vibrant images of urban landscapes and intimate portraits that captured the soul of the city. Their conversation flowed naturally, like they'd known each other for years. Ryan, at 38, was a practical, organized man who valued stability and honesty above all else. Brielle, at 35, was the perfect opposite: creative, spontaneous, full of contagious energy. He fell for the way she saw the world through her camera lens, for her easy laugh and unpretentious nature. Their dating was intense and passionate. Ryan had never felt so alive beside someone. Brielle brought color to his structured life, and he gave her the security she'd never had. After a year and a half together, Ryan proposed during a trip to the Rocky Mountains at sunset, with a simple but elegant ring he'd carefully chosen. She said yes without hesitation, her eyes shining with happiness. Their wedding was a quiet ceremony in the garden of Brielle's parents' home, a traditional, religious family Ryan came to love. Their honeymoon in Hawaii was perfect, filled with promises of a bright future together. The first few months of marriage were exactly how Ryan had imagined. They moved into a cozy apartment in a quiet neighborhood in Denver, decorated with Brielle's photos on the walls and furniture chosen together. Ryan left early for work at the agency, managing campaigns for major clients, while Brielle worked from home editing photos and scheduling client sessions. Evenings were filled with home-cooked dinners, conversations about future plans, and the quiet comfort of being at ease with each other. Ryan had never been happier. He'd watch Brielle laugh at something on TV and think he'd made the right choice, that she was the person he'd grow old with. But something began to bother him, a subtle feeling he tried to ignore at first. Every Tuesday without fail, Brielle left the house in the late afternoon, always around 5 o'clock. She said she had a regular client, a businessman who preferred corporate photo sessions only on Tuesdays because of his packed schedule. Ryan thought it was odd at first, but Brielle had always been a freelancer, so it made sense that she'd have clients with specific needs. He trusted her completely, or at least, he thought he did. Tuesdays became part of their routine. Ryan would come home from work, eat dinner alone or order takeout, and Brielle wouldn't arrive until 10 or 11 at night, always with an excuse about the client being a perfectionist or the session running late. She'd come home tired, take a quick shower, and go to bed. Ryan noticed she seemed distant those nights, but he blamed it on work exhaustion. The real suspicion began in a small, almost accidental way. It was a regular Thursday when Ryan decided to check the joint bank account they'd opened right after getting married. They'd agreed to use it for household expenses and savings, keeping separate personal accounts for individual spending. Ryan was reviewing statements to plan a weekend getaway when he noticed something strange. There were weekly cash withdrawals, always on Tuesdays, ranging from $200 to $300. Plus, recurring charges from a boutique hotel in downtown Denver showed up on the statements, always on the same date, Tuesday. Ryan frowned, his heart starting to race. Why was Brielle withdrawing cash and using a hotel every week? That didn't make sense for corporate photo sessions, which usually took place in offices or studios. He tried to find a rational explanation. Maybe the client preferred privacy and rented a suite at the hotel for sessions. Maybe she needed the money for equipment or something like that. But the more he thought about it, the less it added up. Ryan decided to ask her directly. That night, when Brielle came home, he showed her the statement casually, trying not to sound accusatory. "Honey, I noticed these hotel charges and the cash withdrawals every Tuesday. Can you explain?" Brielle looked at his phone screen, and Ryan swore he saw a flash of panic cross her face before she composed herself. "Oh, right. Those are work expenses with this regular client. He prefers doing sessions in hotel suites for privacy, and I use the cash to cover extra costs like transportation and gear. I'll reimburse myself eventually, it's just a matter of organization." The explanation sounded reasonable, but something in her voice, a slight tremor, an almost imperceptible hesitation, made Ryan's stomach turn. He didn't say anything else that night, but the seed of doubt was planted. In the days that followed, Ryan couldn't stop thinking about it. He watched Brielle more closely, searching for signs, anything that would confirm or ease his suspicions. She seemed normal, even affectionate, but there was an emotional distance he couldn't ignore. On Monday night, Ryan made a decision. He needed to know the truth, even if it meant confronting something that could destroy everything they'd built. On the following Tuesday, Ryan left work early, telling his boss he wasn't feeling well. He parked his car on a side street near their house and waited. At 5:10, he saw Brielle leave, wearing a stylish top and dark jeans, carrying only her purse, no camera gear. Ryan's heart pounded. He followed her discreetly, keeping enough distance to stay unnoticed. Brielle drove straight into downtown Denver, navigating busy streets until she pulled up in front of the boutique hotel listed on the statements. Ryan parked a few spaces away and watched. She walked into the lobby with confidence, like someone who knew the place well. Ryan waited a few minutes, his mind racing through possibilities, each worse than the last. Then he saw a man arrive, tall, clean-shaven, wearing a leather jacket and jeans. The man checked his phone, looked around, and walked into the hotel. Something about the way he moved, the familiarity with which he carried himself, made Ryan's blood boil. He got out of the car, crossed the street, and stepped into the lobby. The place was sophisticated, with soft lighting and minimalist decor. Ryan approached the front desk, where a young receptionist greeted him with a professional smile. He improvised quickly, pulling together every ounce of charm he had. "Hi, my wife checked in a few minutes ago. Brielle Cooper. I was supposed to meet her, but I forgot the room number. Can you help?" The receptionist hesitated for a moment, but Ryan's wedding band and confident tone convinced her. "Of course, sir. Room 312, third floor." Ryan thanked her and headed for the elevator, each step feeling like he was walking toward an inevitable explosion. On the third floor, he found the room and stopped in front of the door. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes for a second, and knocked. Footsteps approached from the other side, and then the door opened. Brielle was there, wearing a white hotel robe, her hair loose over her shoulders. When her eyes met Ryan's, the color drained completely from her face. She froze, mouth slightly open, unable to speak. Ryan gently pushed the door and stepped inside. The suite was spacious, with a perfectly made king-sized bed in the center, half a bottle of wine on the table, and clothes scattered across a chair. And there, sitting on the edge of the bed, was the man Ryan had seen enter minutes earlier. He froze too, eyes wide with shock. Ryan looked from Brielle to the man and back again. "So this is it," he said, his voice strangely calm, almost expressionless. "The regular client. Tuesdays. All of it." Brielle finally found her voice, but all that came out was a trembling whisper. "Ryan, I can explain." He laughed, a dry, bitter sound. "You can explain? Seriously, Brielle? You're here, in a hotel room, with another man, and you think there's some explanation that's going to make this okay?" The man on the bed stood up, hands raised in surrender. "Dude, I didn't know she was married, I swear." "She never mentioned," Ryan cut him off with an icy stare. "Don't lie to me. You know exactly who I am." He turned to Brielle, who was shaking, tears starting to stream down her face. "Who is he, Brielle?" She swallowed hard, her voice breaking. "It's Connor. My ex-fiancé." Ryan felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. Connor. He knew that name. Brielle had mentioned it casually years ago, that she'd been engaged once, but the relationship ended badly and she'd moved on. Ryan never imagined moving on meant meeting her ex every week in a hotel. Your ex-fiancé, Ryan repeated, his voice rising. And how long has this been going on? Brielle didn't answer right away, her eyes fixed on the floor. Ryan took a step toward her. How long, Brielle? 6 months, she whispered, so softly Ryan almost didn't hear it. He reached out to me 6 months ago, and I couldn't say no. Ryan felt the world spin. 6 months. That meant she'd been seeing Connor before they even got married. She'd walked down the aisle, said her vows, promised fidelity, all while keeping another man hidden in the shadows. You cheated on me before we even got married, Ryan said, the reality crashing over him like an avalanche. You knew what you were doing and married me anyway. Brielle collapsed into sobs, covering her face with her hands. I'm so sorry, Ryan, I swear I am. I didn't have the courage to call off the wedding, my family was so happy, and I still have feelings for Connor. I can't control it. Connor, who had stayed silent, finally spoke, his voice defensive. Look, man, I really didn't know she was married. She told me you two were just engaged, that you hadn't officially tied the knot yet. Ryan pulled out his phone and opened the photo gallery. He found a picture of them on their wedding day, Brielle glowing in her white dress, and turned the screen toward Connor. That look like an engagement to you? Connor paled even more, speechless. Ryan then opened Brielle's messaging app, which he'd accessed that morning using the password she'd shared with him months ago, when they still trusted each other completely. He scrolled through the messages between Brielle and Connor, texts explicitly mentioning the wedding, jokes about fooling the husband, and future plans where they'd finally be together. You knew, Ryan said, his voice now thick with contempt. You both knew exactly what you were doing. Ryan reached into his pocket and realized his phone had been recording. He'd instinctively turned on the audio recorder before walking into the room, an impulse to preserve the truth. Now he had Brielle's confession captured in sound. You know what's funny? Ryan said, walking to the window and looking out at the city below. I came here today thinking I'd find something bad, but hoping I was wrong. I desperately wanted to be wrong. But here we are. He turned back to face them. And the worst part, Brielle, isn't even the cheating. It's the fact that you had so many chances to be honest with me. Before the wedding, after, at any point in these 4 months. But you chose to lie. Every single time. Brielle tried to step closer to him, hands outstretched. Ryan, please, we can talk about this at home. We can try to fix this. No, he interrupted, stepping back. There's nothing to fix. You made your choice, week after week, every Tuesday. And I made mine this morning. Brielle stopped, confused. What do you mean? Ryan pulled an envelope from the inner pocket of his jacket. This morning, before I came here, I already had a strong suspicion of what I'd find. So I went to a divorce lawyer and started the process. He already has copies of the bank statements, the hotel charges, and now he has this audio recording of your confession. He waved his phone. All documented. All recorded. Brielle's face twisted in despair. You can't do this, Ryan, please. My family, what will they think? My mom will, your mom already knows, Ryan said, watching Brielle stagger as if physically struck. I sent the evidence to her this afternoon, before I came here. I thought she deserved to know what kind of daughter she raised. Brielle let out a choked cry, her legs giving out, and she sank onto the edge of the bed, sobbing uncontrollably. Connor tried to put his hand on her shoulder, but Ryan silenced him with a glare. Take your hand off her. You've done enough damage. Connor pulled back, clearly frightened by Ryan's intensity. Look, I'm out of here, okay? I don't want any trouble. Too late for that, Ryan said coldly. You'll be named in all the divorce documents. And if I find out you keep seeing her, I'll make sure your reputation is destroyed too. Don't test me." Ryan walked to the door but paused and looked at Brielle one last time. "You know what hurts me the most? It's not losing you. It's realizing the person I loved never really existed. You're a lie, Brielle. A well-packaged lie, but a lie all the same." He opened the door and walked out, closing it behind him with a final click. In the hallway, Ryan allowed himself to breathe for the first time since stepping into that room. His hands trembled, his heart raced, but there was a strange clarity, a sense of relief at finally knowing the truth. He went downstairs, past the front desk, and stepped out into Denver's cold night. The icy air burned his lungs, but he welcomed the sensation, as if he'd woken up from a nightmare. In the days that followed, Ryan acted with surgical precision. He moved his clothes and essentials into a temporary apartment he rented on the other side of town. His lawyer, an experienced man named Gregory Harris, sped up the divorce process, taking advantage of Colorado's laws allowing quick dissolution in cases of proven bad faith. Ryan demanded the return of all money spent on the wedding and honeymoon, arguing that Brielle had entered the marriage under false pretenses. The evidence was undeniable: bank statements, text messages, the audio recording. Brielle had no defense. She initially tried to contest it, but her own lawyer advised her to accept Ryan's terms. Fighting would only prolong the agony and increase costs. Brielle's family was devastated. Her mother, a devout and traditional woman, cut off contact with her daughter for months, unable to process the betrayal and public humiliation. Brielle's father, a quiet but respected man in their religious community, refused to speak to her. Brielle lost not just her husband, but most of her family's support network. Connor, realizing the gravity of the situation and fearing legal repercussions, abandoned Brielle the week after the confrontation. He blocked her number, switched gyms, and avoided any place they might cross paths. Brielle was completely alone, dealing with the consequences of her choices. Her photography career suffered too. Rumors about the affair spread quietly through social circles, and several clients canceled contracts, unwilling to associate their brands with personal scandals. Ryan, meanwhile, threw himself into rebuilding his life with unwavering determination. He increased his hours at the agency, channeling his pain into productivity. His superiors noticed his renewed dedication, and 3 months after the separation, Ryan was promoted to Director of Marketing, a position he'd been aiming for years. The temporary apartment became permanent, and he decorated it minimally, reflecting his desire for simplicity and authenticity. He started attending weekly therapy, working through the betrayal, the anger, and eventually, forgiveness, not of Brielle, but of himself, for not seeing the signs sooner. His therapist, Dr. Alan Mitchell, helped him understand that the betrayal wasn't a reflection of any failure on his part, but of Brielle's choices. Ryan also rediscovered old passions. He returned to running the trails in the Rocky Mountains every Saturday morning, something he'd given up during the relationship. He joined a book club and started attending marketing industry networking events, expanding his professional and social circle. For the first time in years, Ryan felt free, not bound by expectations or a false image of marital perfection that had never been real. He went on casual dates with a few women, but without rushing into anything. He'd learned to value his own company, to find peace in solitude. 6 months after the hotel confrontation, the divorce was finalized. Brielle signed all the papers without contesting, returning the wedding money in installments that would drain her finances for months. Ryan received the official confirmation via email on a Friday afternoon. He looked at the document, feeling a mix of relief and melancholy. A part of him, the part that still remembered the good moments, felt a pang of sadness for what could have been. But the larger part, the rational, strong part, knew he'd made the right choice. He filed the document, closed his laptop, and went for a walk around the city. The sun was setting over Denver, painting the sky in oranges and pinks. Ryan stopped at a cafe he used to frequent before meeting Brielle, ordered a cappuccino, and sat on the sidewalk, watching people pass by. There was a lightness in his chest he hadn't felt in a long time. A year after the confrontation, Ryan was in a radically different place. He'd moved into an even better apartment with a view of the mountains. His career was thriving, with several high-profile projects under his leadership. He'd traveled alone for the first time, spending 2 weeks exploring Iceland, a trip he'd always wanted to take but never had the courage for. He started dating a woman named Emma, an architect he met at a charity event. She was kind, transparent, and didn't carry the shadows of a deceitful past. Ryan wasn't in love yet, but he was open to the possibility, something that had seemed impossible months ago. He'd learned to trust again, but with his eyes wide open, paying attention to signs, never again ignoring his instincts. Brielle, he learned through mutual acquaintances, had moved to a smaller town in Colorado, trying to start over far from shame and judging eyes. She'd lost contact with most of her friends and was still trying to rebuild her relationship with her family. Connor, Ryan found out, had started a new relationship and never mentioned Brielle again. Ryan didn't feel sorry for her, nor did he rejoice in her downfall. He simply felt nothing. She'd become a footnote in his story, a painful but necessary lesson. Ryan had learned that love without honesty is a farce, that trust is the foundation of any real relationship, and that personal dignity must never be bargained away. He'd learned that starting over, no matter how terrifying, is always better than living a lie. And then, one ordinary night, while eating dinner alone in his apartment, Ryan realized he was genuinely happy. Not the false happiness he'd felt during the marriage, but a solid, steady joy built on truth and self-awareness. He toasted himself with a glass of wine, silently thanking the Tuesday when he decided to follow Brielle, the courage to confront the truth, and the strength to rebuild his life from scratch. He'd come out the other side stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever the future held, with his feet firmly planted in reality. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.